wanted to code a like button for my blogs, but not just any like button. This had to be the most perfect like button I could code. Now, to understand how I did that, we first need to see what I consider as a perfect like button. A perfect like button, in my opinion, should have two features. Number one, it should give user an immediate feedback on clicking the button, and number two, it should just work as a normal like button. Now at this point you might be wondering if it's really that hard to code a like button. And to answer that question, say you were to implement a like button for your website. One of the easiest way to do that would be to just make the UI for the button and then add an event handler on the button that would be triggered every time the user interacts with the button. Then we would send a request to the server would have a database where we can increase the counter of the likes, and then we can update the UI again. This is a perfectly fine like button that will work 100% of the times for most of the use cases. If you think about it, there is one small problem with this implementation. The problem is user will get the feedback that the like button has been clicked and like has been saved after some amount of time. And that time might vary from 20 milliseconds if we have an extremely good 5G connection to somewhere like a second if we are living in some remote areas of the world. And if that's the case, user is not getting an immediate feedback, and so it feels laggy and not smooth. Now this was one of the main things that I wanted to fix using my implementation of a like button, and from this part of the video we are going to try and solve this problem of immediate feedback. Now one thing I would like to point out right now is that on my blog website, I don't ask users to authenticate themselves, and so to make the likes unique, what I do is that I store the users' like preferences in the local storage of their browser. And I know this is not like the perfect solution because you can have like 10 different browsers and then you can give 10 different likes, but that's alright for my use case. With that being said, my initial implementation was pretty simple. Whenever a user would click on a button, I would save it in the local storage of their browser and also make an API request to my Firebase database. Once the API request was complete, I would update the UI and the counter of the likes would increase, thus telling user that the like has been successfully added to the database. This was fine as a first pass. Now to make this entire experience feel better, more smoother and faster in general, we are going to use this thing called optimistic updates. Basically, what I'm gonna do is that I'm going to update the UI right when the user will click on the like button, and then I will be optimistic and assume that the like would be stored in the Firestore database eventually, whenever it is possible to do so. By doing so, the user wouldn't have to wait for the UI changes to happen once the API request is complete. Instead, what we are doing here is we are assuming that the API request would be completed, and so we are updating the UI without waiting for the request to complete. This looked great for almost 2 or 3 days until I realized that by trying to solve one problem, I have introduced another problem. Basically, since we have eliminated the time for the update in the UI, we have introduced a new concept where the user can constantly click on the like button multiple times back to back for, let's say, 2 seconds or 3 seconds, and by doing so they would end up flooding the server with a lot of API requests. Of course, at the server side you can have something like rate limiting to avoid these things, but I wanted to see if I can do something on the client side itself. Because I did not have a server of my own, I was adding the likes to a Firestore database and I definitely didn't want to flood that thing. One thing that I did now is that I introduced this variable called did I update something. This is a custom variable that I made. The way it works is very simple. Since liking and unliking are the only two exhaustive possibilities in this case, this variable will keep track of whether or not after some X amount of seconds any change has actually happened to the previous state of the button. So for example, if the blog was already liked and user starts spamming the like button multiple times continuously for say 3 seconds, at the end of 3 seconds I would check if the blog was already liked, is it still liked, or is it not liked anymore. Based on that, I would make just one API request once the user is done with all the tapping on the button. What that allows me to do is that I would no longer be doing 1000 requests per second just because a user decided to click on the like button 1000 times in a second. I would only be making one request, and that too only if the user has actually changed the state of the button. And so by introducing this did I update something variable and a 500 millisecond timer to my request, I was able to have a like button on my website that would respond immediately to the user's click, but also would not flood my server in case somebody decided to use a bot. So yeah, this is how I implemented an almost perfect like button. The reason why I'm saying almost perfect is because it still has a lot of flaws. There are two different cases which I already know of myself where this like button would not work. I don't want to talk about them in this video. I might end up writing a blog here on the website, so I'm gonna link down the website in the description. Check that out, and that's pretty much all for today. Thank you.